tell you. Oh, baby, let me tell you how to do it now.
Hola, and welcome to the More Substance Podcast. I'm your host, name not important, and this is the program where we bring you some of the most interesting people on earth. Some you may know, some may be strangers. A few might be famous, and others infamous. Nevertheless, what a great time to be listening and opportunity to learn something new.
Let me tell you. Baby, let me tell you how to do it now.
Many thanks. And not the M-I-N-I kind, but the M-A-N-Y kind. I hate to start the premiere podcast off with confusion. So let's make one thing clear. You made an excellent choice to listen. We can't do anything about your bad choices in the past. But right now you're making a great choice. So whether you're on your way to work, I hope you love your job. And it's not that job where you sit in the parking lot calculating your bills, trying to see how long you can live reasonably without that job. But I digress. If you're just getting off, job well done. If you're off today, what better way to spend your time? If you're looking for a job, keep looking and let this motivate you on your way to employment. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it while you're listening to the show. And when you get done, tell somebody about it. Don't be a hoarder trying to keep all the good stuff to yourself. Sow into someone else's life. You'll set yourself up to reap some more things if you do. But without further ado, let's make it do what it do. Shout out to Ray Charles and his stunt double Jamie. Oh, and before we kick this thing off like Super Bowl Sunday, let me let y'all in on a little secret. Spoiler alert. I repeat, spoiler alert. If you're the type that loves surprises, I'm going to give you permission. And this is probably the only time I'm going to give you permission to skip forward. But go ahead and skip forward so I don't ruin it for you. Go ahead. I'm going to give you surprise lovers a few more seconds. Okay. If you didn't fast forward, you're either nosy, couldn't locate the button to fast forward, or you just love to be the first to know. So know this. We've had the pleasure of doing a lot of interviews, and God willing, we're going to do a lot more. All were great in their own way, and you'll see that if you keep making the right choice to listen. But in the end, well, in this case, the podcast beginning, there could only be one. We're not doing a polygamous podcast. So I present to you the first of numerous, interesting, educating, and humorous podcast. Please enjoy responsibly. Today we have a distinguished friend of the show. I'm glad he took the time out to do it. I'm going to read over his bio real quick. I won't read the whole thing. If I did that, it'd probably take a whole 30 minutes. But just to give y'all a gist and a feel for his experience and background. So Mr. Larry LeSure is a media and advertising technology industry leader with over 15 years of experience working with the world's leading brands, media companies, and technology providers. He is founder and chief media strategist at Adnocrats, an advertising advisory media agency. The company was established in 2015 and specializes in advertising media planning and buying for businesses of all sizes across all platforms, including TV, radio, billboards, and online beyond social media. As chief media strategist, Larry is responsible for the media strategy and execution of the company. Before launching Adnocrats, Larry was director of programmatic yield at Mojiva. That's Mojiva Inc., a leading advertising exchange platform sitting at the intersection of media and advertising technology. Prior to that, Larry was an ad operations specialist at Yahoo. He's previously held success positions at CNET and media buying roles at Universal McCann. Before embarking on an advertising career, he worked in media public relations for several NFL teams, including the Dallas Cowboys, Houston Texans, and New York Jets. I could go on and give you his whole history, but that would take more than 30 minutes, so we're just going to get right into it. With that being said, y'all put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Mr. Larry LeSure.
Well, thank you for having me, Roland. It's a pleasure to be here on your podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Well, good. So you just wanted to know a little bit about kind of my background and kind of where I went to college at. So, of course, I'm from Louisiana.
All right.
Grew up in an area between Leesville and Fort Polk. And attended the University of Louisiana Lafayette in Lafayette, Louisiana. In school, I studied actually mass communications, journalism, with a minor actually in advertising. Right?
Right.
How crazy is that? Right?
Right. So did you know, like, did you envision that from the jump? Like what kind of led you into that field? Like, I want to be in advertising. Did you just see a niche for it? Like everything needs advertising, or how did you even choose that field?
Good question. So I actually followed the footsteps of my father.
Okay.
So my father was actually a journalist. He worked for the Army newspaper, which is called The Guardian. And then when he retired from the Army, he actually used to work for a newspaper in Leesville, Louisiana, called the Leesville Daily Leader.
Got you.
And during that time, just kind of being a kid and kind of watching what my father does, taking pictures and just interviewing people and doing everything that journalists do, I kind of wanted to kind of follow in his footsteps.
Gotcha.
So in combination of watching my father and growing up watching ESPN, I felt as though that could be a good career for me, where I get a chance to, one, follow my father's footsteps,
Hmm.
but two, actually still be involved in sports. Right. So
Yeah. Yeah.
looked at my college catalog.
Yeah.
Uh, Went to mass communications. Learned what that actual degree would actually
Right.
entail, and decided just to move forward with actually mass communications. Was in journalism. The advertising side kind of just fell into it. So we had to take marketing and advertising classes
Right.
in college. So I kind of just enjoy kind of what that whole process was about, and I thought that that could be definitely something that I could consider as I start my career after college. Right. So.
Yeah. So and then during college, you end up getting an internship with the local hockey team there.
Actually, so we did something with it used to be called correct. So I actually did some work with the local hockey team in Lafayette called the Ice Gators.
Okay.
The Ice Gators, you're bringing me back. The Ice Gators actually was a hockey team, and I cannot think of the actual league that they were in, but they actually used to win championships.
Okay.
So it was actually really interesting. But that internship basically was in combination with the internship that I had with the TV station in Lafayette called KATC3, and it
Uh-huh.
was an ABC affiliate. And I actually used to work in the sports department.
Gotcha.
And in the sports department, you're exposed to all these different, sporting events and etc. So I was able to kind of do some networking stuff, and then kind of help the Ice Gators out on game days, right? So on game days, we used to come in,
Uh-huh.
do things, with the organization, and then when I'm not doing that, I was at the television station, in the sports department.
Okay, okay, soaking it up. So let's fast forward then. You didn't get out of college, and then you're looking for a job in that field. What was your first job when you got up out of there?
So let me yeah. So my first job, kind of out of college,
Right.
actually was an internship with the. So let me take a step back,
Okay.
right? So for me, I was really big on just trying to get as much information and as much experience as possible.
Definitely.
Right, I come from that kind of lineage where you never know too much and you can always
Never.
learn something new. Right.
That's right.
So while I was still in college, I was fortunate enough to get an internship with the Dallas Cowboys,
Right.
in public relations, working with the team. So I spent my summer actually in Dallas working with the Dallas Cowboys and their public relations, media relation teams, really focused on helping the young players actually become media savvy, right? So
Yeah.
giving them media training, making
Right.
sure that we're keeping the brand, not just them as players, but the actual brand of the actual Dallas
Right.
Cowboys organization, that stayed positive. So after that internship,
So
I was
wait,
pretty hot.
let me ask you this real quick though. Did you
hmm
fall into that internship on your own, or your uncle got it for you?
Actually, it was through my uncle. So
Okay.
my
Well,
uncle,
tell the people who your uncle is.
my uncle is Tony Tolbert,
Uh-huh.
number 92. He played with Dallas for I think 9 or 10 years.
When they was winning.
when they were winning. So
Okay, okay.
he walked away from that organization with I think 3 or 4 Super Bowls,
Yes, sir.
and really with a really good reputation of wanting to do good business with. Right. So
Right.
when he found out that I was looking for an internship, he kind of reached into his network
Yeah.
and was able to get me an interview with the head of public relations there. He's actually still there now. His name is Rich Dalrymple.
Okay.
And Rich and I met. I still had the interview for the job, so it wasn't a hookup. I
Right.
still had to,
Prove yourself.
interview and
Yeah.
yeah, and prove myself exactly. And that's kind of what was done. So, yeah, Rich Dalrymple, he's actually still there, and it's like 20 plus years later.
Yeah. He's still. Hey, that's a good job. That's a good organization.
No, definitely, definitely, and I still kind of keep up with kind of what's going on, and when I see them in passing,
Right.
I definitely speak and all that, But just kind of fast forwarding, just really quick. So when I was when I finished my internship, I was still in school.
Okay.
I loved what I was doing in terms of media relations, public relations. So I applied to work for the University of Louisiana's media relations team, and I was fortunate enough to get that job.
Okay.
So I transitioned from working professional media relations
Mhm.
to collegiate public
Okay.
relations,
Gotcha.
right? Um, some of the main sports that I was responsible for was track and field, which we had a pretty good track and field team,
Hmm.
and women's softball, which we actually had a really good team in. I think we usually always finish in the top five nationally, like every year.
Right.
And then I actually assisted um, on some of the other sports there, like football and basketball. One of the cool facts about the basketball team was two of my high school teammates
Uh-huh.
actually played on the basketball team. So I'm talking about
Wow.
Reggie DeGray
Uh-huh.
and Lonnie Thomas, who I grew up with. We played high school basketball together,
Yeah.
and they actually, were really important members of the, Raging Cajun basketball team. So that also made my job a lot easier, just to have people that, I already knew on that organization, right? So.
Yeah. That team made the tournament too. I saw before. It was in the March Madness.
Absolutely. I remember that day like it was yesterday,
Man.
just rooting on Reggie and Lonnie, man. They doing their thing, man. And I remember just kind of a side note, we used to watch games in our student union, and there
Uh-huh.
was a particular place called Groucho's.
Yeah.
And I remember just everyone, just, all the students just kind of hanging out in Groucho's, just watching the game, man, and just supporting our team, right?
Yeah.
So.
That's love. So then fast forward, you get down with that. When since we got I told him about all the teams you was with. How'd you end up with the Texans? Was that before or after the Jets?
It was actually no, so it was actually before the
That was
Jets,
before.
right?
Okay.
So yeah, so it was before. So after, like I said, I started with Dallas as an
Right.
intern. I went back to college,
Got on the
and kind of
collegiate
worked in media
level.
relations.
Hmm.
After school, it was really about, where do I go next?
Right.
So the girl who I was dating, who eventually became my wife,
Right.
ended up getting a job actually in Houston, Texas,
Uh,
working with a pretty big accounting firm here in Houston.
right.
So knowing that she was here, I started looking for job opportunities actually in Houston. So what I was able to do was reach out to my network that I established in Dallas and in college. And one of the guys who I was told to connect with was a guy by the name of Tony Wiley, who currently is director, or he runs communications for the Washington Redskins.
Okay.
At the time, he was actually running media relations for the Texans. His background was very similar to mine. He interned with Dallas, so we had a lot of people in common,
Right.
right, at the time. So, what was cool about it is I met with him. I kind of told him what I was doing and what I wanted to do and what I was looking for. So he was like, great. He brought me on board. We had a really, really good media relations team, man. And our game day staff for the Texans,
Uh-huh.
we actually won the Pete Rozelle Award, which basically highlights the best public relations staff in the NFL that year. So that was
Right.
probably one of our best highlights there. I ended up working 4 years with the Texans.
Okay.
Great experience. I still see some of the guys around town. We laugh about the David Carr era.
Right.
You know, it's just really good time still, though. I still have a lot of fond memories about my time with the Texans. So,
Okay. Okay. And then fast forward. Then how'd you end up leaving Houston?
yeah, so again, following my wife at the time. So we first met, we were just dating. She was my girlfriend, and again, of course, she became my wife.
Right.
She received a really good opportunity to move to Connecticut for work. And again, it kind of left me in a situation where I'm like, hey, I need to find me a job
Right.
while I'm in Connecticut, right?
Right.
So again, I reached out to my network, and they told me to meet with a guy named Dan Miller,
Mhm.
who was currently running public relations or media relations for the actual Jets. So again, I went up to New York, met with Dan. Dan and them kind of like what I was, my background and what
Right.
I wanted to do. Very similar case to, to the Texans,
Hmm.
and they brought me on to actually help them with game day help, right? So I
Gotcha.
kind of came in, work with their team on game days. One of the cool things about working with them, though, was I always worked the visitors' locker room.
Okay.
So I got a chance just to kind of see the opposing teams,
Uh,
celebrity players or star players for the most part. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, that was my time with the Jets.
okay. Okay. I don't want to get you in trouble. Are you allowed to say which one of them organizations was the best? I know you don't want to burn no bridges. If not, it's all good.
As a New Orleans Saints fan,
Uh huh.
I know the Who Dat Nation would not like what I'm about to say, but I think just reflecting back on the teams that I actually work with, I would definitely say Dallas had. I would definitely say my best experiences with Dallas.
Okay. I mean, that's a
Um,
well-run organization. Whatever you might not like about them, that brand is like number one.
No, absolutely. I mean, Jerry Jones, Rich Dalrymple, the team that they have, not the team, but the staff that they have
Right.
there, man, they're tier one, man. And, you know, the team that I worked with while I was in Dallas, I mean, they're all Hall of Famers. I
Right.
mean, at the time that I was there, man, you had Emmitt Smith, you had Troy
Hmm.
Aikman, you had Deion Sanders, you had Michael Irvin,
Right.
and then one of my classmates actually that I went to school with was Kavik Pittman,
Right.
who actually played for Dallas as well. So they were
Hmm.
all on the team during that same time, right? So if
Right.
I was to say what organization was best run, I would have to say Dallas at this particular time, right?
Okay, okay. So, what made you jump out of the PR stuff to get into the ad operations at Yahoo? How'd you kind of fall into that job, or were you trying to get away from sports? How'd you get into that?
No, great question. One of the things that I think is the misnomer that most people just overlook is they see that you're working in the NFL or in professional sports and they just assume that you're making a ton of money,
Right.
right? In actuality, the players are making a ton of money, but
Hmm.
those that work within these organizations are working regular jobs for the most part. So the pay is not what one would assume, right?
Right.
Having a growing family, and just wanting more for having more structure in my day, I just thought it made sense, for me to actually try to look for opportunities outside of sports.
Definitely.
One of the difficult things that I always had a hard time just kind of dealing with was going to work in the morning until, right?
Yeah.
Like, how hard is that when you have a family where you go to work at 8 in the morning and you work until
Yeah.
everything is done? So that could be 9, that could be 10, that could be
Right. Just
11.
whenever
Like
the job's done.
whenever the job
Man.
is done, and when you're young, that's all cool. It's all fine. But as you start to
Right.
get older, you want a little bit more structure in terms of timelines and time frames, right? So it just made sense. So I was able to kind of transition out of the NFL, and I landed at a really good agency called McCann Erickson or Universal McCann, which at the time was the largest ad agency in the world, right?
Okay.
And coming from sports to advertising actually was a big transition, but I felt as though a lot of the skill sets that I picked up over the years in media relations actually transferred over to advertising, so I was able to kind of hit the ground running for the most
Okay.
part, right?
Yeah.
During my time over at McCann, we worked on some really big brands in terms of media buying and planning.
Hmm.
So I was a buyer, so I had responsibilities to plan and buy media for General Motors, Lowe's, and Popeyes at the actual time. So that was really, really cool
Yeah.
job, especially coming from, like I said, the NFL to what we call corporate America,
Right.
you know,
Right. Uh-huh.
you know. Um, yeah, so I think what's cool about that is that had being in control of budgets, advertising dollars,
Yeah.
you're always monitoring exactly where the best place to place your advertising dollars at, right? So for me, a lot of my money was disappearing and it was actually going into the online space, right? So a lot of my
Right.
advertising budget was being shifted over to online. So for me, I felt as though it was time for me to start exploring what this whole online game was about, and if it made sense, actually start transitioning over to the online space.
Right. Definitely.
So before I was able to make it to Yahoo, I
Uh,
worked at another company called CNET Networks, which is still around today.
yeah. I be
It
seeing they
actually was.
channel on TV.
They got their own channel on TV,
Yeah.
so we were one of the pioneers. I was one of the account managers, over at CNET,
Right.
and we were really just making a lot of this stuff up in
On the
terms
fly. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
online and advertising. There really wasn't any blueprints.
It was kind of
There
new then.
wasn't.
Hmm.
Exactly. There wasn't no, you can look at another business and learn how to do it. Like literally, Silicon Valley, the .com era, we're really making these business practices up as they go,
Right. Right.
So
That was that dial-up era instead of transitioning to the DSL and all that.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah. So
so then, how did you get from CNET and helping all these people from the ground up to get where they eventually became today to getting over to Yahoo?
yeah, no, great question. So when I was at CNET, we were in negotiations to be acquired by CBS.
Okay.
CBS, which is a pretty big,
Yeah, yeah. To say the
media
least.
media company.
Yeah.
So during that time, in terms of negotiations, I was started being recruited by a friend of mine. Her name is Laura Anderson, actually, and I hate that I just name dropped her, but Laura, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're building out this team at Yahoo." Kind of looked at the work that I was doing at CNET, and really just wanted me to be part of her team. At the time, she was running the ad operations team for Yahoo in New York,
Right.
and she reached out to me. Thought that I could be a really good fit for what they were doing. And my focus at Yahoo will be on the Canadian business.
Hmm.
So really focusing on growing Yahoo Canada's business.
Right.
And her pitch to me was it's a startup for the most part. We're basically started from the ground up, but you get a chance to be part of it. And if we do what we're supposed to do, we can really grow this into a nice business, and I can get accolades throughout the company. Right?
Right.
That was the
Okay.
basically the pitch, and the
Yeah.
money was going to be right.
Of course. Yeah.
So I said, coming from Louisiana, I'm thinking, hey, I'm living in New York at the time. I
Yeah.
get a chance to travel to Toronto,
Right. You was gonna
Canada.
get some good traveling in. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm thinking to myself, this is a great opportunity. You know what I mean? So I made the jump from CNET to Yahoo to work on their ad operations team, specifically focused on growing the Canadian business. Right.
Right.
That was a great time of my life. The online space was popping. Yahoo was a behemoth in the space.
Yeah, Yahoo was running it back then. Like like AOL was in the game, but then Yahoo was like strong. Everyone had a Yahoo address.
Exactly. So we were the big dogs on the block.
Right.
We carried it, we carried a lot of, we leveraged kind of these business relationships to actually grow. And
Uh-huh.
I got a chance to really do some traveling. So a lot of it made sense.
Yeah.
So I spent 7 years, 6 to 7 years at Yahoo, on the exchange business, basically working in account management and what we call now programmatic media buying, right?
Right.
Basically is what I do now.
Okay.
But my time at Yahoo, I was able to meet some really, really key individuals
Hmm.
that came up at the company alongside alongside me.
Yeah.
And what's cool about it is these are relationships and people that I call on today
Oh,
that
definitely.
allows me to do what I do now in terms of my own business, right?
Right. When
So
you know who to ask certain questions to, you already got that plug.
absolutely. One of the things that I tell people all the time, Roland, is that, it's not what you know, it's actually who you know.
Yeah.
And if you take a step back and look at my career, whether it was the opportunities that I got in Dallas, at the University of Louisiana Lafayette, the Texans, Jets, Yahoo, they've always been relationship based,
That's right.
right?
That's
Where
right.
I just knew the right person, was able to make the right connection, and was able to get the right opportunities. So I always tell people, man, don't overlook the power of actual relationships and the actual and actually networking, right? I think
That's
they're
right.
very key in terms of growing
Very,
careers,
very
etc.
key.
So
And not only that, even though you network and stuff, you're a good worker. You smart, like you did your job. It'd be different if you just knew people and you wasn't thorough yourself. But when you do your job, then they gonna give you that plug. Like, nah, he the one. Yeah, take a chance on him.
yeah, no, I agree. And even where I'm at in my life today, you know what I mean. A cosign can only go so far.
That's right.
You know what I mean. At the end of the day, you still have to do your work. You know what I
Hmm.
mean. And that cosign, yeah, you get the cosign to kind of get you in the door, to kind of get you, a look. But at the end of the day, you still have to put together good work. You know what I
That's right.
mean.
That's right.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you there.
So from Yahoo, is that when you became the director of programmatic yield, or what was next?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us
Y-
how you went from
Yeah.
Yahoo
So
to there.
Yeah, so Yahoo basically prepared me for life in terms of what we see now in advertising, right?
Okay.
Many people hear the term programmatic media buying or programmatic advertising, right?
Okay.
And really don't quite understand what that means, right? So
Right.
when I was at Yahoo focusing on a Canadian business, we actually acquired a an ad exchange which goes by the name of the Right Media, the
Hmm.
Right Media Exchange. And what people don't know is the Right Media Exchange was probably the first ad exchange in the world for the most part in terms of advertising, right?
Okay.
So on one
Okay.
side you had advertisers, on the other side you had publishers,
Right.
and the Right Media basically sat in the middle and was able to transact transactions between the
Between
advertisers
the
and the
two.
actual buyers,
Right.
right? So think of the New York Stock Exchange; it's set up just like that.
Okay.
Well, at Right Media, we're basically making this stuff up as we go, right?
Uh-huh.
There's no blueprint to what we're trying to do here, right?
Right.
So that experience, those relationships there allowed me to build a really strong network on the advertiser side and on the actual publisher side, which are the websites and the apps at the particular time, right?
Right.
So from there, I'll just kind of transition really quick. Having spent so much time at Yahoo, many of my friends and colleagues said, "Hey, you're too loyal to Yahoo." Many of them were, walking away with huge exits, from Google and Facebook and some of the
Uh-huh.
other startups that were getting, acquired.
Right.
They were like, "Hey, Larry, it's time for you to kind of,
Branch
step out
out.
of Yahoo and do your own
Right.
thing."
Yeah,
you
definitely,
know,
definitely. Uh-huh.
Sometimes, coming up, having my father being in the military and kind of watching him, we're kind of loyal to a fault,
Right.
right? And that's kind of one of my things that I'm working on now in terms of loyalty, right?
Right.
Where I know I'm a good friend,
Hmm.
sometimes to a fault,
Right.
you know? But so I decided to leave Yahoo. It wasn't a popular decision amongst my family,
I
and
bet.
friends for the most part, because they're seeing
Yeah.
Yahoo as this big
I
company.
was just about to say, like, you gotta keep in mind, Yahoo was that company. If Facebook wasn't up and running, and Google wasn't bumming, so they probably like, you leaving Yahoo? Like, what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, at the end of the day, I was the one that actually had to go to work. You know
Right.
what I
That's
mean?
true.
That,
Yeah.
yeah, it's this big company and they're doing really good things. But at the end of the day, I have to love what I'm doing. And I always have to continue to, improve on,
Right.
who I am. You know what I mean? And making sure that I'm getting the best I can out of these jobs because at the end of the day, they're going to try to get everything they can out of you. You
Everything.
should try to get everything out of them while you're
That's right.
there. You
That's
know what I
right.
mean? Um, so I left there and I went to a company called Run DSP, which was a small startup at the time, an employee base of less than six for the
Uh-huh.
most part.
Okay.
I came on board doing business development work for them,
Okay.
leveraging the relationships that I was able to establish in my previous jobs, specifically Yahoo.
Got you.
And probably about 6 months into that job, we got acquired by Verizon.
Okay.
So with that, it doesn't happen like they show in the movies where your company that you're working for gets acquired, and all of a sudden you're just rich and you no longer have to work,
Right.
right? doesn't work like that in real life. You know, I hate to bust anyone's bubble, but it doesn't work like that, right?
Right.
So I ended up getting a job after we got acquired. You know, I ended up getting another job at a company called Majiva.
Right.
And Majiva was an ad network set up very similar to what Right Media was, where you have advertisers on one side and publishers on the other. But they brought me in to work on the publisher operations team, where we're actually working with websites and getting them set up on the platform so that websites can actually start making money, right? So that's
Right.
what the whole object of that role was for. Um, that actual job was actually really cool. Like I said, established, you know, my name in the space. Became one of those go-to people where people knew that if they needed to get work done, you know, from a client side,
Right.
they knew that they can come to me. We can actually get that work done for them. So I worked my way up. Again, started off as publisher operations.
Okay.
Ended up as director of programmatic and yield.
Right.
And basically, what that means is, you know, it's a pretty long title, but
Yeah.
basically, what that means is, you know, programmatically, you working at, you know, with advertisers and buyers,
Uh-huh.
and you're making sure that those transactions actually take place in you know in the right manner,
Yeah.
and making sure that one, we're getting the yield or we're making the money from these transactions as we need to be. So that's where the yield part comes in at. So.
Okay, okay. And I imagine through all this, you got a pretty good portfolio. So when it's time to get a job, you can be like, bam, here's my numbers. This is what I do, and here's my people to co-sign. So it makes it pretty easy when you keep track of all that, right?
Absolutely. Again, remember the theme here, Roland, is relationships,
Right.
right? So, you know, working at Majiva, we ended up getting acquired by another company called Pomatic. And, you know, some of us decided to go with the acquisition,
Okay.
others decided to kind of go out on their own path.
Yeah.
For me, you know, I think it was time for me to kind of go out on my own path, right?
Okay.
I've established the relationships. I got the network. We have the money, you know what I mean, to kind of really kind of go out and really kind of make a dent in this actually space. So I decided to do what many people think about today and to start my own agency,
Right.
right? Doing it very similar to what I've done at all my previous roles in the advertising
Exactly. You
space,
you
all
already
right?
had the ground up start, so starting something for yourself ground up wasn't you probably wasn't no fear or doubt or nothing. You like I do this.
Well, anytime you're starting a new company, there's always a little bit of doubt,
Uh huh.
you know, in yourself, and it's not necessarily related to can you do the
The
actual job
skills. Right.
or the skills. A lot
Right.
of it has to do with timing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is this the right time for me to do it?
Got you.
And you know, and all that. So
Because it's definitely gonna take
literally,
some sacrifices too.
no, absolutely, because again, no longer do you have that security blanket, you
Okay.
know, that that whether you work or not, you're gonna get
You're
that
gonna get
paycheck.
paid. Uh huh.
When you have your own company, you know, you eat what you kill, so to
That's
speak.
right.
You
That's
know,
right.
so if you don't go out here and grind, you know what I mean. You don't get no
You
paycheck
don't
for
see
the
no
most part.
return. Nope.
You don't get no return exactly. So, you know, I had a talk with my wife, you
Okay.
know, and she's, you know, and my family for the most part, you know, and
Right.
they were very supportive
Good.
in terms of what I was trying to do, and they've been supportive of me to this day, you know. So, literally, when I started my company, I literally just changed the signature in my email address from Majiva to the Adnocrats,
Right.
and basically reached out to many of the clients that I had working relationships with in the past, and I kind of shared with them kind of what I was doing and kind of what was going to make us different from the previous companies that I was working for, and most importantly, I asked them for their business. You
Right. Of
know,
course. Yeah. You done
this
built
is
a
what I'm doing.
relationship. They know they can trust you. And you're like, hey, y'all need to get with it.
Exactly. So, you know, that's one thing that people don't do. They don't ask for the business. You know what I mean? I
Right.
say, look, we have this relationship. You know how I rock.
Right.
You know that customer service is always going to be top tier for us. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? For the company that I put together, um, I would like an opportunity to earn your business. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And
Yeah.
many of them bought into the idea of working with me. You know, going forward,
Right.
and basically we started hitting the ground running. You know what I mean?
Okay.
To the company that I now run right now as chief media strategist called the Adnocrats. Right?
Right. And you launched this in 2015, right?
Absolutely. So we launched
Okay.
in 2015. It was funny because during that weekend, I was trying to figure out a name,
Uh huh.
and I could not think of names, so I had all kind of corny names. trying to figure this out, but I don't know if through reading or not because I am an avid reader. I actually still read hardcover books,
Right.
to date,
Okay.
But they said don't spend too much time on trying
Uh
to find a name for your company
huh.
because at the end of the day, no one's gonna buy your service or product based on an actual
Just the
name.
name alone, right? Right. It
Yeah,
might
they're
get
gonna
their attention, but if your product ain't right, they don't care what the name is.
Absolutely. So during this particular time, President Obama's in office,
Uh huh.
and I've been, following politics for a minute,
Right.
so I like the whole sound of what an adnocrat actually was, well, what a crat was actually, right?
Right.
So I did some research on the actual name, and basically the name just means a supporter or an advocate of something. You
Okay.
know what I mean? So I said, you know what? I'm in the advertising business. I'm a true advocate for this business and what it has done for not just myself, but for clients and my family as well, right?
Yeah.
So I just kind of put ad in front of the Necrats
Right.
and came up with the name Adnocrats, right? And
Right.
it's funny because it's been a really good conversational piece, when we
Yeah.
speak with clients in terms
Like,
of,
what's that?
hey,
Yeah.
what is that and how did you come up with that name, right?
Yeah.
So,
So let's talk about it. What does your company actually do and the service you provide that people should want to use?
yeah, so we are a advertising media agency.
Hmm.
We're focused on helping small businesses
Okay.
in terms of reaching their customers. So simply put, we place media on the behalf of advertisers, right?
Okay.
What we believe separates us from many of the other media buying shops out there is one, our customer service. You know what I mean? Like we're very hands on with all of the clients that we work with.
Right.
We basically do all the planning for them.
Okay.
Then we do all the buying for them. So we really operate as an extension of their actual business, right? But not just what we buy, what we provide from a customer service perspective.
Hmm.
The key thing is we're affordable, right?
Okay.
So
Because
what
you
we
did say
do is
small businesses, so
exactly. So think about it like this. My background is working with really large companies,
right.
and providing them media planning and buying services, right? Most of the time, there's minimums in terms of how much someone needs to spend in order to run on these platforms. So, for
Right.
an example, most minimums are between $5,000 and $10,000, right?
Okay.
So, for a small business, those numbers are unobtainable,
Yeah.
right? You
Right.
can't afford to spend 5 or 10,000 just to run your ads on your business, right?
That's right.
So as we were building out the Adnocrats, one of the things we wanted to do was make sure that our services that we provided, making sure that it is, affordable
Right.
for small businesses. So what we've been able to do is provide a price point for clients, very similar to what they're used to in terms of social media, right? So when they're out here buying boost and post on Instagram or Twitter,
Uh huh.
we set our pricing up very similar to theirs.
Okay.
The difference is that you can run beyond social media. So if you wanted to run advertising on ESPN or CNN or World Star Hip Hop or whatever the case may be,
Uh huh.
we can run and place all those ads on the behalf of our clients in all these respective places. Not only are we able to do it online, but we can also place media on iHeartRadio. So
Okay.
think of the Black Breakfast Club
Right.
with Charlemagne, Envy, and Angela Yee. We
Uh
can
huh.
do anything that we needed to do in terms of placements for Spotify and
Okay.
Pandora, which we believe that's where the market is heading to anyway.
Oh,
So
definitely. Yeah. So basically, instead of them trying to spend the money on, like, say, Facebook or these other things where the ad will run, y'all can take the ads to billboards, TV, radio, or whatever, and reach a whole nother audience.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, because at the end of the day, most people do not use social media in the way it's intended to be used, especially
Okay.
for brands.
Right.
So most people, don't understand the algorithm, and that's for a whole nother conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But many people do boost and post,
Uh-huh.
and they find out that their messaging is not reaching the intended
Intended
audience,
audience.
right?
Right.
So, for an example, you can have 1,000 followers, right?
Right.
But when you boost or submit a post,
Uh-huh.
not all 1,000 of your followers actually see your messaging.
Wow.
Only the people that you engage with on a
On
regular
the
basis are the ones that actually see your message, right? So if you're
yeah.
only liking and commenting and reposting from a handful of people,
Yeah.
then only that handful
That's
of
the
people
stuff
is
you're gonna
actually going to
see
see your
that pop
message.
up. Oh yeah, that's how they kind of do it.
Absolutely. So.
Gotcha. So I know you were saying that you make it affordable for the small businesses. Is this just one set price, or how do y'all go about with the pricing to make sure everyone can afford to advertise?
Yeah, so similar to what I had mentioned earlier, what we've done is we've aligned our pricing to align with what people are already used to, right?
Okay.
That being, being able to run ads on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the most part, right?
Right.
So many of these platforms have a daily budget minimum.
Okay.
So you can run a budget of $5, you can run a budget of $100 a day.
Gotcha.
What we decided to do was set ours up at $12.50 worth of daily budget every day will get you in the game.
Okay.
The reasoning behind that is to one, make it affordable, and for two, people to try out our services, and to determine if this is something that they need in their at their company, and that it can help them, it can be useful for them, right? So we want them to kind of give us a test drive, so to speak,
Right.
before fully committing. At that level, you know what I mean, you're going to reach hundreds of thousands of people, you know
Okay.
what I mean, with your brand messaging. And the idea is as our small businesses and the partners that we partner with, as they grow,
Hmm.
their ad budgets will continue to grow because
True.
again, they're seeing success with this, and they're able to adequate that back to the media spend, right? So.
Gotcha. Okay. That sounds good. Sounds good. You got any people that you're advertising with now that you want to share about, or?
Yeah, so in full disclosure,
Uh,
one of my favorite brands that we work with right now is a Houston-based company. It's called Alcove.
okay.
And basically what Alcove is they provide a workstation for business people on the go,
Okay.
or students on the actual go. So think of it kind of as a laptop case,
Hmm.
that adds some additional accessories to it. One being privacy, and then two being the case where you can kind of pull up or create a workstation anywhere that you're at. So, for an example, if you're at Starbucks and you
Okay.
need just a little bit more privacy as you're putting together your brand new startup or you're doing your homework,
Right.
you can open up the Alcove workstation. It will provide you a little bit more security, in terms of privacy, where people aren't able to just peer over your shoulder or kind of see what
Right.
you're doing. So it provides that kind of workstation there. And then if you're listening to any music or any sound or anything, I mean, the sound. Just surround sound within that workstation is
It's
actually
nice.
awesome.
Nice.
So I always like to just talk about them. The founder Yared. He and I started off as just colleagues. Within the workspace,
Right.
but we've actually grown to be pretty good friends. You know what I mean? Like I believe in what he's doing, and it's just a good match. The other client that I love working with is a company by the name of Urban Events Global.
Okay.
They are a modern day travel agency focused on people of color. The founder, Kevin Knight, is actually a high school friend of mine.
Okay.
He's been doing big things throughout his career, and he decided to kind of branch off and start kind of his own kind of travel agency, so to speak. Many people know him for basically putting together the largest camping event for people of color in the world, right?
Wow.
So annually they have this event out in Texas, right outside San Antonio. I think it's in New Brunsfield.
Okay.
And what they do is they invite, people of color, for the most part, to go camping.
Yeah.
And they have all kind of programming around it. It's just a really, really good event. He's been awesome to kind of work with, because he just gets it. He's definitely business savvy. He definitely knows what he wants, and he knows that the execution is key to it, right? So,
Right.
he's been probably a really good client to actually work with as well.
Gotcha. I
So,
heard. I heard they did some big stuff for New Year's Eve too, didn't they?
yeah, no, absolutely. They put together a package, to celebrated New Year's Eve or New Year's in Rio de
In
Janeiro
Rio.
in Brazil.
Right, right.
So they had a good turnout. I was speaking with him the other day about it. They had some people down, man. They had some really good experiences, man. Definitely had a lot of images for the gram, for the most part.
Yeah.
But slowly but surely, he's becoming a name. He's building out a really good brand in that particular space.
Right.
And I can't wait to see some of the events that he has planned in 2019 and going forward. Right. So.
Definitely gonna look forward to that and check out there. How can people get in contact with Alcove or Mr. McKnight then?
Yeah, so you can go to their website.
Uh,
It's getalcove.com. And you could definitely
and
catch
how you
him.
spell the Alcove part for me?
So that's ALCOVE.
Okay.
Yep. And then for Kevin Knight, he has a couple of different websites.
Okay.
But the best way to kind of look him up would be Urban Events Global.
Urban Events
Um,
Global. Okay.
yep. And that should be across all the different mediums.
Gotcha. Well, that'll work. Well, outside of work and everything, you're a businessman. You're doing all that stuff. You're helping companies. You're plugging companies. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about or mention before we wrap it up? Like
Yeah,
stuff
for
you
the
do in your off time?
Yeah, so for the first part, while I'm plugging everyone else's company, I would love to definitely talk about how people can reach me.
Okay.
We're the Adnocrats, man. We're a media planning and buying, agency focused on helping small businesses grow their businesses
Right.
through the use of media placements on television, radio, and online. If any of your listeners are interested and wanting to learn more about kind of what we do,
Uh-huh.
what I'll do is I'll give your listeners, and you and I can speak offline about that, but we
Okay.
give them a free consultation
Okay.
for any of these small businesses that want to kind of know what they need to do in order to really start to grow and scale their businesses.
Yeah.
They can reach me directly on our website at Adnocrats. That's ADNOCRATS
Mm-hmm.
.co. That's across the website and all the different media, social media accounts.
Okay.
And we can definitely talk about how we can kind of help your listeners
Perfect.
take
Perfect.
advantage of these solutions.
Okay. Okay. What about the Black National Sales Network?
Oh, NSN. Yeah, so
Yeah.
NSN. So, living here in Houston,
Mm-hmm.
networking is very important, and if you look back at my career, you know what I mean? Like I've been able to have the success that I've been able to have based on relationships and being able to network.
Right.
Right. So, a friend of mine who I think I spoke about earlier, Reginald DeGray, or
Okay.
Reggie DeGray,
Yeah.
he invited me to this organization here in Houston called the National Sales Network Houston chapter. And basically, what this chapter is it's a sales network focused on people of color and actually allowing us an opportunity to showcase how we can navigate sales, at our respective jobs and companies, right? So it's
Okay.
more of a group. There's some mentorship stuff going in there, and there's definitely a lot of lunch and learns so that we can be better at our jobs and in our day to day jobs.
Definitely.
What's funny about that group is two of my high school and college friends,
Uh,
Reggie and Darwin Lewis, who
okay.
I know you know who that is.
Uh-huh.
Your listeners may not,
Right.
but we're all part of this organization, man. And what's cool about it is that it gives us a chance, one, to hang out because I mean we are genuinely good friends,
Okay.
in general. But it also gives us a chance to continue to enhance our careers, right, from a sales perspective, right. So it's been
Definitely.
a really good organization to be part of.
Yes. Well, we'll end it on this. I know you mentioned spring briefly, but so don't say too much about it because I'm gonna get Spring on the show. Spring a boss, like Spring really do big things, but just speak about real quick how she's been holding you down over the years and how just being married to a good woman helped your overall success and gave you the support you needed.
No, no, definitely. Spring, all my friends love Spring.
Hmm.
She's always one of the people that you want in your corner
Right,
when you're definitely embarking on something new. So she, is an accountant,
right,
and she, from a business perspective, she's always had her head on her shoulders from day one since the day
right.
we actually met, right? And as you navigate small businesses and just starting your own business in general, it's always good just to kind of have that support one from emotional, because there's ups and there's downs as you grow a business, right?
Right.
But also two, from the knowledge and experience perspective of it. So when we're out here trying to make decisions that actually increase cash flow,
Uh-huh.
or even certain things like taxes,
Right,
and
definitely.
how to address that, it's always good just to kind of roll over, and ask her a
Right, be like,
specific
hey,
question
yeah,
related to the business.
got it right at home. Don't have to go nowhere.
Absolutely, but what I will say is that she is not our corporate accountant for the company, and the reason why we did that is we wanted to make sure that she and I had a separation, professionally and private, private
Got you.
relationship,
Makes
right?
sense. Okay.
Because I've seen her work,
Uh-huh.
and she's tough, and she doesn't
Yeah.
let anything slide.
Spring
So
spring about your boss for real.
so as a business, sometimes you want to expense certain things
Uh-huh.
that you may not be able to get across if your wife actually knows that you want to expense. For instance, that long lunch or that expensive lunch
Yeah.
that you just decided to take out, to do.
Yeah.
She's not going to
She
let
ain't
me
having
get.
it.
She's not having that exactly, but
Gotcha.
our other accountant, she may allow us to let that slide. So
Got you.
so.
Well, I appreciate you doing the show. It's gonna be real informative. Everybody, help everybody. I know a lot of people got business and stuff, so if they want to advertise, they're gonna be able to reach out and get to you. And I wish you and the family much success.
No, I appreciate that, Roland. And one thing I just wanted to say, shout out to you. When you kind of reached out to me and just wanted to mention kind of what you were working on and what you wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
Anything for you, man, I'm on board, man.
Already.
Anytime, we're at that point in our life where it's about really just helping and passing knowledge on.
That's
You know what I
right.
mean? And I think that's kind of where I'm at in my life as well, where, if you have information that can actually help someone, then why not share it? No
I
need to
know why.
keep all this in, so
Exactly. Let's help each other.
let's help each other. So the work that you're doing with this podcast, man, much success to you. I can't wait to kind of hear and see, you as you go down this path, go down this journey and stuff, man. And anything that you need from us, man, we're only a phone call away, man. So
That's right. Well, I appreciate it.
absolutely. Well, you take care, man. We'll talk soon.
Okay, you too. Well, they say all good things come to an end. And it's about that time for this good show. I hope you learned something new. I hope you loved it. I hope you liked it, share it, comment on it. And we're just going to keep building from here. We got a lot of great shows coming up. And I hope you enjoy and it blesses you. Until then, goodbye.